Ask anyone how the great Library of Alexandria was destroyed, and they will likely give you a simple, dramatic answer. A single, catastrophic fire. Some will blame Julius Caesar and his Roman legions. Others will point to the rise of Christian fanatics. Some might even mention the Muslim conquest. It is a story we all think we know. A grand, tragic bonfire of ancient knowledge, a single moment when the world's wisdom turned to ash. But this story is a lie. It is a myth, a simplification of a far more complex and, in many ways, a far more terrifying truth. The great Library of Alexandria was not murdered in a single night of fire. It died a slow, agonizing death over the course of 500 years. It was not destroyed by a single enemy, but by 1,000 cuts inflicted by the very civilization it was meant to enlighten. This is the real story of how the mind of the ancient world was lost. It is not a story of a sudden blaze, but of the slow, creeping darkness of apathy, politics, and fanaticism. Our story begins not with an ending, but with a revolutionary idea. It begins with Alexander the Great. After conquering much of the known world, he founded a city on the coast of Egypt that would bear his name forever, Alexandria. His vision was not just for a military outpost, but for a new capital of culture and knowledge, a bridge between the East and the West. Alexander died before his vision could be realized, but his dream was inherited by his most trusted general, Ptolemy I. Ptolemy, now the new pharaoh of Egypt, sought to make Alexandria the intellectual center of the universe. To do this, he needed more than just a grand city. He needed an institution. Inspired by Aristotle's Lyceum in Athens, he founded the Mausoleum, the shrine of the Muses. This was not just a library. It was the world's first true research university. It was a campus complete with lecture halls, gardens, a zoo, medical facilities, and observatories. And at its heart was the great library. The mission of the library was simple and breathtakingly ambitious: to collect a copy of every single book on every single subject from every single culture in the known world. It was an attempt to create a total repository of human knowledge. The golden age of the Library of Alexandria was a period of intellectual brilliance that the world would not see again for over 1,000 years. Ptolemy and his successors were obsessive collectors. Agents were sent across the Mediterranean to buy any scroll they could find. A law was passed decreeing that any ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor had to surrender its books. The books would be taken to the library, professionally copied by scribes, and the copies, not the originals, would be returned to the owners. The originals were added to the library's collection. At its peak, it is estimated that the library held between 400,000 and 700,000 papyrus scrolls. But it was the scholars who worked within its walls that made it truly legendary. This is where Euclid, the father of geometry, wrote his Elements, the most successful textbook in the history of mathematics. This is where Eratosthenes, a geographer and astronomer, calculated the circumference of the Earth with astounding accuracy, using only shadows, a well, and his intellect. He was off by less than 2%. This is where Hero of Alexandria invented the world's first steam engine, a primitive device called an eolipile, nearly 2,000 years before James Watt. This is where the medical pioneer Aristotle's performed the first scientific dissections of human bodies, discovering the nervous system and the difference between arteries and veins. This is where the Hebrew Bible was first translated into Greek, the Septuagint, a monumental work that would shape the future of both Judaism and Christianity. The library was not a dusty archive. It was a vibrant, living engine of discovery, where the greatest minds of the age came to read, to debate, and to push the boundaries of human knowledge. So if it was this great, what happened to it? The first and most famous suspect is Julius Caesar. The story goes that in 48 BC, during his civil war with Pompey, Caesar was besieged in Alexandria. To gain a strategic advantage, he ordered his soldiers to set fire to the Egyptian fleet in the harbor. The fire, the story goes, spread out of control and consumed the great library, along with its priceless collection. This is the version of events that has been immortalized in plays and films, and it is almost certainly false. The primary source for this event, the Roman philosopher Plutarch, writing over a century later, does mention the fire, but he says that it destroyed warehouses near the docks, warehouses that contained a great number of scrolls. These were likely scrolls waiting for export, not the main collection of the great library itself, which was located further inland, as part of the Mausoleum complex within the royal palace grounds. There is no contemporary account that mentions the destruction of the library itself. In fact, the geographer Strabo, who worked in Alexandria just a few decades after Caesar's visit, mentions the Mausoleum and its scholars but never speaks of a catastrophic fire. The myth of Caesar burning the library is a powerful one, but it is not supported by the evidence. It was the first cut, perhaps, but it was not the fatal blow. The true death of the library was not a dramatic inferno, but a slow, agonizing decline. A death by 1,000 cuts that began from within. The decline started in the 2nd century BC. The later Ptolemaic pharaohs were not the enlightened patrons of knowledge that their ancestors had been. They were paranoid, cruel, and embroiled in constant political infighting. In 145 BC, Ptolemy VIII, a particularly brutal ruler, launched a purge of Alexandria's intellectuals. He saw the scholars of the Mausoleum as a political threat. He expelled all foreign scholars from the city. The great astronomer Aristarchus of Samos, the man who first proposed that the earth revolved around the sun, was among those forced to flee. This was a devastating blow. The library lost its greatest minds, and the spirit of open inquiry began to wither. The funding for the library, once a top priority, was slashed. The obsessive collection of new scrolls slowed to a trickle. The institution began to stagnate. It was no longer the vibrant engine of discovery it had once been. It was becoming a monument to a forgotten golden age. The city of Alexandria itself became a more violent and unstable place. Civil wars and riots became common. In one of these conflicts, in 272 A.D., the Roman Emperor Aurelian's army attacked the city to quell a rebellion. The fighting was fierce in the Palace District, the very area where the Mausoleum and the main library were located. Ancient sources tell us this district was completely devastated. It is highly likely that whatever remained of the original Great Library was destroyed during this conflict. But this was not the end of knowledge in Alexandria. There was a second daughter library. It was located in the temple complex of the Serapeum, in a different part of the city. This library also held tens of thousands of scrolls and had become the new intellectual heart of Alexandria. But the world was changing. The Roman Empire was now a Christian empire. The old pagan gods were being replaced by a new, zealous monotheism. And the Serapeum, a magnificent temple to a pagan god, was seen by many Christians as a symbol of heresy. In 391 the Christian patriarch of Alexandria, Theophilus, a man known for his aggressive intolerance, led a mob of fanatics to the Serapeum. On the orders of the emperor, they were to destroy the pagan temple. The scholars inside were helpless. The mob stormed the complex, smashing the pagan idols and, according to several accounts, destroying the library it contained. The historian Socrates of Constantinople wrote that the temple was destroyed and its library was ransacked. This was likely the final fatal blow. While some scrolls may have survived in private collections, the last great public repository of ancient knowledge in Alexandria was gone. The death was not caused by a single fire, but by a long, slow cancer of political instability, economic neglect, and rising religious fanaticism. So what was the true tragedy? It was not the loss of a building, but the loss of a way of thinking. The library represented a world where knowledge was valued for its own sake, where different cultures and ideas could meet and be studied. The scholars of Alexandria collected not just Greek texts, but Egyptian, Jewish, Babylonian, and perhaps even Indian manuscripts. Their goal was universal knowledge. The forces that destroyed the library, political purges, budget cuts, civil wars, and religious intolerance, are the eternal enemies of knowledge. What was lost was not just scrolls, but the discoveries they contained. We know the library held the complete works of the great Greek tragedians, of which only a fraction survive. It held the histories of Berossus of Babylonia and Manetho of Egypt, works that could have answered 1,000 questions about the ancient world. It held the astronomical charts of Hipparchus, and perhaps even the original writings of Aristarchus, who mapped a sun-centered solar system 1,800 years before Copernicus. We will never know the full extent of what was lost in that slow, centuries-long decay. The story of the Library of Alexandria is a profound warning. It teaches us that knowledge is fragile. It is not a monument of stone, but a delicate ecosystem of ideas that requires constant nurturing, funding, and, most importantly, a culture of tolerance and open inquiry to survive. The myth of the single fire is comforting, because it allows us to blame a single villain. The truth is more disturbing. We, as a civilization, allowed it to die. We let the mind of the world slip away, not in a blaze of glory, but in a quiet, collective act of forgetting. And it is a lesson that our own age, with its digital archives and infinite information, would be wise to remember.